Yo, the world's largest asset manager has potentially forced the world's $900 trillion worth of wealth to buy some Bitcoin with their new portfolio recommendations. I'm not kidding. This is absolutely massive, but not surprising whatsoever. So who am I talking about? BlackRock is now officially recommending buying Bitcoin in their model portfolio. You heard that right, which millions of investors look to as an easy to use guide for asset allocation. But there's a little more to this recommendation that meets the eye. BlackRock analysts dropped a report saying what we've all known for quite some time. In fact, maybe they read my tweets. If every millionaire wanted to buy just one Bitcoin, they literally physically could not. There's 60 million millionaires all around the world. There's only 21 million Bitcoin. If you subtract the 3 to 4 that are lost, I mean, number goes up. That's what happens. Anyways, guys, no more delay. Let's jump straight into the report. But before we do that, I want to bring up my legendary co-host, who's always optimistic, the one and only Optimus Fields. Let's pull up the Bloomberg article, shall we? And then we'll jump into the report itself. From Bloomberg, BlackRock adds its Bitcoin ETF to Motto portfolio for first time. So a couple thoughts here before we get into the article. We always talk about aligned incentives, right? And that's very unique to Bitcoin. It's what makes Bitcoin different than everything else, makes it different than fiat. This is why you hear Max Kaiser saying that Saylor is the Bitcoin employee of the year or Larry Fink is the Bitcoin employee of the year. By them pumping their own bags, if you're holding Bitcoin too, your bag is being pumped as well, right? And that's the whole Bitcoin network, the whole Bitcoin protocol. The miners aren't mining Bitcoin out of the goodness of their heart. They're mining Bitcoin out of the pursuit of profit. People who run nodes, they're not doing it out of the goodness of their heart. They're doing it because they don't trust other people's nodes. They want to run their own node, right? So it's all about aligned incentives, right? And this is why Bitcoin fundamentally, I believe, is going to win. Because the fiat system is a system based on coercion. It's not based on incentives. BlackRock adds its Bitcoin ETF to model portfolio for first time. The world's biggest asset manager is finally allowing Bitcoin into its $150 billion model portfolio universe. BlackRock Inc. is adding 1 to 2% allocation to the $48 billion Bitcoin ETF and its target allocation portfolios that allow for alternatives, according to an investment outlook viewed by Bloomberg. While that's a small subset of BlackRock's entire model portfolio business, the addition opens up a potential avenue of new demand for IBIT at a time when cryptocurrency sentiment is soaring. Model portfolios, when packaged together, funds into ready-made strategies to sell to financial advisors have boomed in recent years. Tweaks to their holdings can result in massive flows in either direction. Out of this entire article, right there, that line is the signal. Because essentially, like if you're a financial advisor, and let's say you're not offering like a custom asset allocation, you're relying on what BlackRock is doing, right? And BlackRock is basically saying, you know what, Bitcoin is now part of the model portfolio. And if you're a financial advisor, you say, you know what, Bitcoin is part of the model portfolio. It is what it is. Now, is BlackRock doing this out of the goodness of their heart? No, of course not. They're doing this to pump their ETF, right? And again, the ETF isn't ideal, right? You obviously want spot Bitcoin and self-custody, but still, I mean, Bitcoin exposure is Bitcoin exposure at the end of the day. This is very positive for number go up. This is like the biggest breaking news of the week, and we've had pretty big breaking news this week. It goes on to say, quote, "We believe Bitcoin has long-term investment merit and can potentially provide unique and additive sources of diversification to portfolios." It goes on to say, Michael Gates, lead portfolio manager for BlackRock's target allocation ETF mono portfolio suite, wrote an investment commentary dated February 27th. It goes on to say, the move by BlackRock comes as Bitcoin prices crater alongside stocks, with a toxic brew of economic concerns and trade tensions weighing on risk appetite. The cryptocurrency is currently trading around 83,000. Now it's currently at 90,000. The volatility has been absolutely wild in the last couple months, to say the least. And it goes on to say, of course, you know, we know this, the Bitcoin ETFs have been literally the most successful ETF launches in history, despite the dragging of the feet by Gary Gensler and the SEC, all the terrible behavior. the Bitcoin ETF still absolutely crushed it. So moving on to the actual kind of presentation itself from BlackRock, from the BlackRock website. It's titled Why Bitcoin, a Perspective from Model Portfolio Builders. I'm going to put the link in the live chat so you guys can check it out if you want. The key takeaways are, as multi-asset portfolio constructors, we believe Bitcoin has long-term investment merit for certain investors and could potentially provide unique and additive sources of diversification to portfolios. And in an era of increased geopolitical instability, ballooning sovereign deficits, and excessive government spending, we expect the store of value narrative will continue to resonate with more investors and potentially supercharged by boomer to millennial demographic tailwinds. A more Bitcoin-friendly administration could ease regulatory bottlenecks, potentially unlocking a wave of pent-up innovation and infrastructural development. So it goes on to say, why now? The launching of the Bitcoin ETFs in 2024 marked a seminal event in financial markets history. We've been telling you guys that for a long time. The ability to seek directional exposure to physical Bitcoin inside the ETF wrapper eases a variety of crypto asset operational frictions and unlocks a broader eligible pool of potential investors. The dramatic inflows into Bitcoin ETFs seem to validate the idea that the next wave of interest in Bitcoin has begun. So this is something that, I mean, we showed you guys, this is ridiculous. And it's showing you guys like from January 2024 to December of 2024. It's basically like a straight line up. It also, what's really interesting too, and depending on the way that you look at it, it also kind of correlated with the Bitcoin price as well, right? Which, depending on how you look at it, right? Like I'm class of 2016. I'm before this whole institutional stuff. Now you can make an argument that Bitcoin is, it's growing up. It's gone into its next phases of its history. It's gone into the institutional era. It's gone into the nation state adoption era. It's definitely different. It's not the Bitcoin, that it was when it was at a much smaller market cap, right? It goes on to say, wider investor base, historically lower volatility. Many investment professionals have cited the high volatility in the price of Bitcoin over the years as an indictment of its status as an asset class that merits consideration for investments, but a general maximum of financial markets is increased levels of investor participation could lead to improvements in price discovery and liquidity, and as a consequence, create more price stability. We have seen similar developments in the past when previously isolated assets became unlocked and available to a broader, more institutionalized investor base. Should we reasonably expect Bitcoin to follow a similar pattern of price behavior? And it just continues to talk about its price swings. I mean, Bitcoin's still volatile as hell. Like we were at 108K. I think we topped out the day of the inauguration. We went down to 78K. Now we're back at 90K. Bitcoin, perhaps it's not like 2021 era or 2016, 2017 era where you have these 30, 40% drawdowns, but the volatility swings are there, right? Like they're there. That hasn't left. And remember what Michael Saylor always says, volatility is life. You want volatility because without volatility, forget about getting a 2 or 3 or 4x or potentially a 5x return in 1 year. Without volatility to downside, you won't get volatility to upside. So I see it as a pro, not a con, a feature, not a bug. And I don't think that's going to last forever, by the way, because I think that once Bitcoin reaches, enormous market caps, when the price of Bitcoin is at $1 million per coin, I don't think you're going to see, I don't think you're going to see the type of potential upside that you see with it now. And we saw that too, like with when Bitcoin hit 100K. I remember me and Opti were having an episode, and I was telling you guys, a 1% move at 100K is $1,000. When Bitcoin was at 10,000, a 1,000% move was 10%, right? So like you can just kind of see, like the bigger it gets, right? The numbers will, the movement is the same, but the percentage isn't, right? So anyways, one of the things that I wanted to highlight here, and Opti was talking to me about this earlier, is to illustrate how few available Bitcoins there are. If every millionaire in the US, just in the US, by the way, I don't know what the number of millionaires in the US, I know worldwide it's like 60 million, but I don't know what the exact number of millionaires are in the US. But I know obviously it has the world's lion's share of the wealth. The United States is a very wealthy country. But anyways, it goes on to say, to illustrate how few available Bitcoins there are, if every millionaire in the US asked their financial advisor to get them one Bitcoin, there wouldn't be enough. That is insanity. That is insanity. That's why like when British HODL or like American HODL, because I know American HODL changed his target. It used to be 6.15. Now it's like 1. But when these guys are telling you just to reach one Bitcoin, like, I think people underestimate how out of reach that is going to be for the vast majority of people. We had Rajat on the show yesterday. Highly recommend the episode. At the end, we just focused on how much Bitcoin you need to retire. And it was crazy because in some of the countries, he was basically making the argument that like, look, in 10 years, you'll need like 0.06 or like 0.1. Like it's such like a ridiculously low amount. This is what people have to understand. There has never been an asset in the history of the world that has had absolute scarcity. Has never existed, right? Gold is scarce, but if the price of gold goes up, the production of gold will go up with it. If the price of Bitcoin goes up, the production of Bitcoin, not only does it stay the same, it gets cut in half every 4 years, no matter what, right? So you have a perfect storm. This is why this thing's going up forever. This is why it's a black hole. This is why Michael Saylor, no shame, goes on legacy media and says it's going up forever, Laura, right? Like this is why, right? But what's really crazy is it's not just Bitcoiners or Michael Saylor saying this. Like you have the world's largest asset manager coming to this conclusion themselves, right? And remember, we all start at the same place. Let me just dip my toes in. Let me just get a little bit of Bitcoin. And then before you know it, within 6 months, you're like 100% allocated. Right, because you realize like
no, it's because the price goes up, Nico.
No, the price goes up too. But like, I mean, the episode with Rajat was very eye opening because like it was like this is someone who came from like a traditional background, and he's like straight up told us on yesterday's episode. He's like, Nico, like like. I'm 100% allocated to Bitcoin. Like real estate is an altcoin, stocks are an altcoin, like everything is an altcoin. People don't understand. It's obvious. It's obvious. Once you understand, you understand. So the conclusion of this report says critics go to refrain is Bitcoin has no intrinsic value. To the contrary, in our view, the discussed embedded characteristics represent fundamentally real and attractive sources of intrinsic value, which we expect will be recognized by more people in more places over time, particularly in a debt-laden, digital-first, and increasingly AI-entrenched world. And that last paragraph was written by BlackRock. That was not written by Simply Bitcoin. So numbers definitely going to go up despite all the volatility of 2025. Despite us being at 89K right now, 90K. I still think that 2025 is going to be explosive. I think it's going to be an amazing year. I think I'm so looking forward to the Friday White House crypto summit that's going to be hosted by the president, Donald Trump. Michael Saylor said he got invited. And there is a piece of news that was dropped today, which we're going to cover during the news segment, of Secretary of Commerce Howard Lupnick, who is the CEO and chairman of Counter Fitzgerald. Counter Fitzgerald manages all the money for Tether. And he basically said that Bitcoin was going to have a special place in the reserve that was going to differentiate it from the altcoins. Maybe that came from all the pushback from the community. I mean, you had the CEO of Gemini, the Winklevi twins. You had the CEO of Coinbase even say, like, guys, like the strategic reserve should probably be only Bitcoin. Like putting anything other than Bitcoin in this is probably a bad idea. So I think, obviously there was a tremendous amount of pushback, when Cardano and XRP were announced, right, that they're going to be in this strategic reserve, which was quite interesting. So yeah, despite the price action, guys, I think it's important to zoom out, and I think it's important to keep a perspective. And I also think it's important to have low time preference, focus on fiat mining, focus on your work, focus on building your income so you could put that income into Bitcoin, and then use Bitcoin as a savings technology because the future looks bright. Like when they're dropping these types of reports, guys, like when BlackRock, right, is putting such a large bet behind Bitcoin as an asset class, like we're going places. When the president of the United States is hosting a summit at the White House regarding the asset class, we're going places. So it's just a matter of time. I personally believe 2025 is going to be absolutely explosive. So really, really looking forward to that. So that's what we're going to talk about in the beginning of the show. Before I get Opti's comments, I do want to thank everyone in the audience. We're about to break 2,000 live viewers across all platforms. If you guys are enjoying the show, make sure to smash that like button. Help us break 200 likes within the first 30 minutes of the show. And we have a jam-packed show for you guys because we're going to be talking about Howard Lutnick's statement regarding the strategic reserve. And also we have an update for you guys regarding El Salvador. Now, I don't know why I was able to see this, but what Nayib Bukele did yesterday was so incredibly bold and brave, and I applaud him. He stood up to the IMF and he said, no, El Salvador is going to continue buying Bitcoin despite the IMF explicitly forbidding it. We're watching politics play out in real time on social media. No one knows what happens next. This is completely uncharted territory. But you have a country, a small country in Central America, claiming their sovereignty, saying, you don't push us around. And it's a David versus Goliath. They're standing up to the IMF and they're saying, no, you don't get to tell me what to do. So is that going to compromise the loan deal? I don't know. We'll see. But between the initial announcement of Nayib Bukele posting the memes about stacking the dip and the announcement that El Salvador was going to continue buying Bitcoin, there was a 15-hour no communication dead space. So Stacey Herbert from the Bitcoin office, she didn't say anything. Nayib Bukele didn't say anything. Clearly, they talked a lot about it in the background. And El Salvador, I told you guys this on yesterday's show, which was about this topic. I said, El Salvador right now is at a fork in the road, and they're going to have to decide whether they value their country's sovereignty. And Nayib Bukele had the moral courage to stand up and do what was right. So kudos to him. Simply Bitcoin backs El Salvador, Nayib Bukele 100%. We're in uncharted territory. Let's see how this plays out, and we'll definitely cover it the more news comes out. Make no mistake, ladies and gentlemen, the IMF will respond. I don't know what that response will be, but we'll be here to cover it. Anyways, Opti, I mean, this is pretty crazy, bro. BlackRock is saying Bitcoin should be part of the model portfolio, basically saying if you don't have Bitcoin, you're going to have fun staying poor. That is Larry Fink's way of saying that. Opti, what's your take?
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's kind of the big signal here, as the saying always goes, don't listen to what they say, watch what they do. Even though they did drop, guys, I highly recommend you go read this whole article here. It's not going to tell you anything that you don't already know if you're a Bitcoiner, but it really does sound like a Bitcoin maxi wrote this. And I find that kind of incredible. It sounds like a lot of things Bitcoiners have been saying for a long time, but now it's coming from BlackRock. And I know I'm trying not to fall into the authority paradox here, but it does seem to have a little more weight when it comes from BlackRock instead of, two guys in hoodies on YouTube. And if you read it, it says everything we've been saying about Bitcoin. It's written really well, but there is a few portions here that I do want to highlight. Obviously, as we're talking about this model portfolio, that the BlackRock is allocating 1% to 2% to, as of now, of course, their own product, the Bitcoin ETF. But I think that signal in and of itself just goes to show for everyone out there that is either managing managing their own portfolio or an institutional manager, that at minimum, you need to have 1 to 2% allocated to Bitcoin, preferably spot Bitcoin, but at the very least 1 to 2% in Bitcoin ETFs. And I think now, as we're starting to kind of grow up and mature as an industry, as an asset class, as a monetary network, people are starting to wake up to the fact that you need to own a little bit of Bitcoin. And we've been saying this forever on the show. Like, personally, I would say you need to own more than 1 to 2%, but I understand a lot of people that are traditionally, I guess, would say maybe more conservative, more risk averse. Maybe 1 to 2% is just the perfect allocation for them. And then also, one interesting aspect of the article is that boomer to millennial convergence or transformation and tailwinds that it talked about. And that's kind of what we've been saying for a long time. I know I kind of get some shit sometimes in the chat because I'm very strong worded when it comes to boomers. And they're like, not all boomers are bad. Yeah, I get it, bro. I understand. But hey, it's my job to be a little bit hyperbolic. But as you're seeing, the boomer class is, they're getting older. And now us millennials and, of course, Gen Xers as well, we are the ones that are going to be, taking up the bulk of the wealth coming up, whether that's you inheriting wealth or whether that's you as a millennial, a middle-aged adult acquiring wealth. You're starting to see that the demographics are shifting from the boomer class down to the millennial class. And a lot of us young people are like, man, why am I going to own treasuries or stocks and bonds or even real estate when I can just pile all of my net worth and all of my wealth and all of my productivity into Bitcoin? And so I find it very interesting that BlackRock is actually acknowledging this and not just kind of relegating it as like, oh, these kids don't know what the hell they're talking about. Like, they're seeing the writing on the wall and they realize the demographics, the perspective on things are changing and they're adapting to that. So I find that very interesting. And then, of course, if that one portion at the very end that Nico was kind of highlighting, that millionaire part, as Bitcoiners, we all know this. But if you read above that a little bit, I think institutional managers or traditional finance, they're starting to kind of realize what true digital scarcity actually means. And once that clicks for you, that's when that Bitcoin FOMO starts to kick in and you're like, oh my goodness, I need to acquire my piece of this digital landscape, or what's a digital cyberspace, or whatever Saylor's been saying forever. And that's what's going on now. They're starting to realize, hey, look, obviously, they want their IBIT Bitcoin ETF to perform well, but I think that on the back end, they are also scrambling to try to acquire as much Bitcoin as possible, or at the very least, kind of signaling to everyone else that, hey, this is the next game on the block. You need to acquire as much Bitcoin as possible, or at the very least, acquire a little bit of Bitcoin. You need a little bit of Bitcoin in your portfolio. And so I think this is a very different dynamic that we've seen in the history of Bitcoin. Obviously, as a lot of people like to mention all the time, I kind of hate to come on the show all the time and like root for institutions and nation states, but this is where we are right now. We know that they're trying to play hungry hippo with Bitcoin. And with that means that the Bitcoin you're holding today is going to increase in purchasing power. So obviously the fundamentals of Bitcoin remain the same. Buy Bitcoin or work for Bitcoin, take it into cold storage, run a node, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We repeat this all the time. Now, do we think BlackRock's necessarily doing all that? Probably not. They want exposure. But more people are waking up to the fact, hey, I got to own some Bitcoin. So I'm with Nico. 2025 is going to be a great year. I was actually looking at the chart this morning. I know you guys yell at me because I always say I don't look at the Bitcoin chart. But
everyone always looks at the chart. In the
I know. But I think you are ageist, Opti. Lol. But I think, 3 green, 1 red still in play. I think 2025 is going to be a green yearly candle. And we're going to look back at this time frame at the beginning of the year and be like, man, that wick was fun. Remember when we all thought it was over?
It's 2017 vibes. I'm getting 2017 vibes. This is what 2025 reminds me of. It reminds me of early 2017. No one thought we were going to reach at 20K by the end of the year. The end of the year was gnarly. It was so crazy. But the beginning of the year was quiet. It was pretty calm, right? And then the price started going absolutely bananas. Anyways, I do want to give a shout out to the live stream. Almost 700 live viewers on YouTube. We're only at 142 likes. Help us break 200 likes within the first 30 minutes of the show. So YouTube, smash that like button. Whoa, 400 live viewers on Rumble. Everybody on Rumble, smash that like button. And of course on X, 1,700 live viewers. So if you guys are enjoying the show so far, make sure to smash that like button. Guys, we have a loaded show for you guys. We have so much to talk about. We have the update regarding Nayib Bukele, what's happening in El Salvador with the IMF. And of course, we're going to be talking about Howard Lupnick and his comments regarding the strategic Bitcoin reserve. Bitcoin, remember, Howard Lupnick holds a lot of weight. He is the Secretary of Commerce. So, what he says, it's not just an opinion, right? So we're going to be talking about that. And also, interesting news, right? Interesting news. The U.S. Marshal Service say they can't find how much crypto it holds, complicating Bitcoin reserve plans. How convenient, right? How convenient is that? Remember all that Bitcoin that was being moved around? We were speculating, did they sell it? Did the Biden administration sell it before the Trump administration was coming into office? I mean, I don't know. A lot of shitty things did happen with Operation Choke Point 2.0. Anyways, guys, it's going to be a great show. Smash that like button. Before we start the show, I do want to give a very special shout out, of course, to Simply Bitcoin's lead sponsor, the best place to build your automatic self-custody Bitcoin stack, bitcoinwell.com. Guys, you have to check out bitcoinwell.com. Buy real Bitcoin, enable your independence with the fastest and safest way to buy Bitcoin on chain or via the Lightning Network in Canada and the USA. To get started, you put in your email address here. It takes 2 to 5 minutes to get signed up. What makes Bitcoin Well different is that it's a completely non-custodial platform, empowering sovereign ownership with free automatic self-custody. What makes Bitcoin Well different is that, again, it's a non-custodial platform. So when you buy Bitcoin, it goes straight to self-custody. Also, if you're infinite product, it's tailored for people that are looking to buy $50,000 worth of Bitcoin or more. It's a white glove service. So you'll have a dedicated Bitcoin Well representative who will be dedicated to your account. You can call them, you can text them anytime you want to buy Bitcoin. It's an awesome product. I highly recommend. Also, if you're trying to get paid in Bitcoin, Americans can now get paid in Bitcoin sent directly to their personal Bitcoin wallet. Share your Bitcoin Well direct deposit details with your employer, set your Bitcoin/dollar split, and receive sats instead of fiat with every paycheck. Guys, check out bitcoinwell.com today. And if you use promo code SimplyBTC when you sign up, you get 3 tosses into the wishing well for an opportunity to win up to 1 million Satoshis. So go to bitcoinwell.com/simply to get started today. All right, everybody, let's get on to the numbers. We have tons to talk about. Let's check it out.
I want to tell you guys about our sponsor, Stampseed. Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Are your seed words really secure? Stampseed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you'll need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of writing them down on paper. Don't do that. Paper sucks. You want to literally stamp your seed into this plate of titanium. Your words are actually stamped into the metal plate with this hammer. So once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and your pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamp seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They are also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and most importantly, because this is generational wealth, time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin for the long haul. I mean, here is the plate that they crushed. They put in water, they put a blowtorch to it, and as you can see, the words have survived. Stamp your seed on Stampseed. And you can use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on their store. Head over to stampseed.com today.
All right, everybody. Oh, sorry about that. All right, everybody. Scan the QR code on your screen. It'll take you directly to the stampseed.com website. Use promo code SIMPLY. Get 15% off anything on the website. At the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is $89,580. Block height, 886,443. Sats per dollar, 1,116. Market cap, 1.78 trillion. Bitcoin versus gold market cap, 8.7%. Percentage issued, 94.44%. Decline decline from all-time high, negative 17.9%. Realized monetary inflation continues to go down, Opti. Look at that, 0.95%. Anyways, update for you guys regarding El Salvador and their fight for their sovereignty, because make no mistake, this is a fight for their national sovereignty. An international organization that is not represented by the people of El Salvador is telling El Salvador what they can and what they cannot do with their money. Doesn't that sound familiar? Doesn't that sound familiar? It's almost like we've been here before. So let's take you through the timeline of events. And I think it's really important to kind of zoom out just to kind of see it. So this was March 3rd. And this was Nayib Bukele's response 21 hours later after this post. The official time lapse between the two posts was 15 hours. So you can tell that there was a lot of discussions happening in the room. I told you guys on yesterday's episode, El Salvador was at a fork in the road. What were they going to do? Nayib Bukele responded boldly and with courage. He says, quote, "This all stops in April. This all stops in June. This all stops in December." No, it's not stopping. If it didn't stop when the world ostracized us and most Bitcoiners abandoned us, it won't stop now, and it won't stop into the future. Proof of work over proof of whining. Here is Saifedean. He says, El Salvador continues to formulate a comprehensive strategy for reducing risks associated with exposure to the dollar. Michael Saylor responded to Nayib Bukele and he said, Bitcoin adoption is unstoppable. Peter McCormack responds, nothing stops this train. Paulo, the CEO of Tether, says some Bitcoiners simply act like armchair heads of state. What El Salvador has achieved, thanks to President Bukele, is truly incredible and will be narrated in the history books. I had a very similar sentiment when I saw this absolutely historic news. We are watching politics play out on the world stage right in front of your eyes, because of the internet, because of social media. Do you guys remember the conversation between Trump and President Zelensky? Normally, those types of conversation would happen behind closed doors, but because of the internet, everyone gets to see it. And what you're seeing here, ladies and gentlemen, make no mistake, it's no coincidence. This is and like a lot of the responses that Nayib Bukele got in his post was like, President Bukele, like with all due respect, like could you please describe, how you're going to do that? Because in the deal with the IMF, it specifically says that El Salvador is forbade from buying Bitcoin. This is the art of the deal. This is negotiation. This is politics, right? The IMF is going to respond. Make no mistake, because El Salvador basically just stood up to the Goliath, that is the IMF, and said, we're not going along with your games, right? So, obviously it's a David versus Goliath story. El Salvador is a very small country. It's a developing country. The IMF is an extremely powerful organization. I don't know how it's going to end. This is just happening in real time. But I will say, this is uncharted territory. This has never happened before. And I'm 1,000,000% behind President Bukele and El Salvador and the people of El Salvador. What he's doing is extremely brave. Guys, you just look at there's this very famous book called Confessions of an Economic Hitman, right? The IMF is not this it's not just this bank that doesn't do anything. They've done some very shady things in the past in order to retain power and control over countries, right? And Nayib Bukele basically said, no, not on my watch. That's what he said. And he said it for the world to see. This is uncharted territory. The president has made his position extremely clear. There is nothing left to interpretation. Now we're just waiting to see what the IMF is going to respond. It's as simple as that. And they will respond, make no mistake. He would not say that if he didn't mean it. El Salvador has every intention to continue to buy Bitcoin. And again, what I told you guys yesterday, and I'll tell you guys today, the signal here, And what should tell you how fearful they are of Bitcoin and how much Bitcoin is winning is the fact that that the IMF is willing to risk its reputation and willing to expose themselves to basically attempt to block a country from buying Bitcoin. That should tell you everything that you need to know. We are winning. Make no mistake. We should stand by El Salvador, back El Salvador. Let's see what happens. Opti, what's your take?
Yeah, so obviously I love this response. Yesterday, when we kind of covered this news, we didn't get any PR coming from the El Salvador camp. So we were just responding to the news coming out, or that 111-page report coming out from the IMF, and it was looking kind of bleak. Now, this response is just absolute Chad alpha response from Bukele. Very interesting in that tweet where he says, we didn't stop in the past. We're not going to stop in June. We're not going to stop in December. We're going to keep buying. And if you read that report, that's some of the specific dates that the IMF was saying that they need to stop buying Bitcoin. They got to roll down some of their Bitcoin funds. I'm pretty sure the June date was they got to end their Fidelity Bitcoin or FIDED Bitcoin fund. I forget what it's called. And I'm pretty sure by December, they were supposed to stop all Bitcoin buys by the country. And this response by Bukele is obviously, as Nico was saying, very admirable response. Of course, as we've been talking about for a while, they're still Bitcoin country. It did seem like yesterday was completely over. The one thing that is kind of interesting, though, is going to be what the IMF response will be. Does this mean that El Salvador, it's just kind of interesting when you think about the contract. If those were the contract terms, does that mean that this $1.4 billion IMF loan to El Salvador is not going to go through? Is Nayib Bukele and El Salvador basically taking the money and running? We don't know how this is going to play out. But of course, we do love this response here. And I guess from now, it's only time will tell to see what the IMF response will be, what El Salvador's response will be. And then these deadlines, or rather these markers in time, June and December, it's going to be very interesting to see that they continue to stack Bitcoin. And also, as we've been saying for a while, or actually really been covering on the show, that every time we got a new IMF news, we also saw a new smash buy by El Salvador. I think yesterday they bought 5 Bitcoin and added it to, their public holdings. So obviously a super Chad move by Nayib Bukele. Love to see it. And I really do like Paulo's. I know, shocking. I'm agreeing with Paulo, and he's, the creator of Tether. I kind of agree with that because I feel like I feel attacked on the tweet because we were kind of talking about it. Though actually, Nico, pull up. I think Stacy did a pretty good response, and she said something kind of similar. Maybe we pull that up, but it is interesting that we get this report. And then, they probably had to do some PR here, and then they came out and they're like, no, fuck it. We're going to keep buying Bitcoin. We're not stopping. This is great. So there we go. That top one, Nika, she pinned it. Some Bitcoiners trust the words of the IMF over the stacking actions of El Salvador, recorded for eternity on the Bitcoin blockchain. So yeah, hey, as we've been saying for a long time, words mean nothing and actions mean everything. And if they're going to continue to double down on Bitcoin, it is going to be very interesting to see what happens with this loan, what the responses will be, what the attacks might come from whoever, so it's going to be very interesting to see. But this is obviously a great response. This is a very Bitcoiner response here. So, shouts out to Nayib Bukele and shouts out to El Salvador. This is a Chad move, especially when you consider just how tiny El Salvador is. And like you said, David versus Goliath. This is a tiny country standing up to one of the biggest institutions, or rather, literally the economic mafia out here. So shouts out to El Salvador, Nayib Bukele, and stay safe. May God protect you.
100%. This was a very, very bold move by the Bitcoin president. Make no mistake, ladies and gentlemen, you're watching diplomacy happening in real time on social media. This was a very well thought out response. It was a response of strength. It came from a position of strength. Nayib Bukele was basically saying, guys, you know what? El Salvador is a sovereign country. We are not stopping. You guys are doubting me. Of course, he has to frame it that way. He has to structure the statement that way. But that statement wasn't for the Bitcoin community. That statement was for the world. That statement was saying, listen, El Salvador gets to determine what they want to do with their finances, not the IMF. Let's see how the IMF responds. But kudos to El Salvador. I told you guys yesterday that they were at a fork in the road. This was an extremely bold move by the Bitcoin president, and you can clearly tell that he put a lot of thought into it before responding back. So we're in a completely uncharted territory. We'll give you guys an update as soon as we have one, but this is extremely exciting. I mean, this is the separation of money and state, baby. What else did you expect? Anyways, guys, this has been an amazing show. We have so much to cover today. We have an update regarding the strategic Bitcoin reserve. Apparently, U.S. Marshals have lost Bitcoin. They don't know where it is. And Opti has something very interesting to cover during the culture segment. Why don't you hint it, Opti?
Yeah, so there's been a lot of talk about eggs recently, and we're not really going to go into the egg prices so much in fiat terms, but I'm going to pull out one of my handy-dandy favorite charts coming out of the Fed, and, you know, it might surprise you if you don't understand how Bitcoin works, but hey, life is cheaper on Bitcoin. You just love to see it. So yeah, I got some cool headlines. I got a good chart. You know, we're gonna be just talk about how your life gets cheaper on Bitcoin, even with eggs. Even though the media is freaking out about eggs, your life still gets cheaper on the Bitcoin standard.
Absolutely. Also, I want to give a shout out to the live stream. 2,889 of you guys watching between X and YouTube. 656 live viewers on YouTube. 2,252 live viewers on X. And holy cow, 582 live viewers on Rumble. Shout out to the Rumble audience. If you guys are enjoying the show so far, make sure to smash that like button. Also, want to share you guys a limited merch drop at Simply Bitcoin. We just dropped it. You guys definitely want to check it out. We should have definitely bought more because this is flying off the shelves. If you guys want to rep Simply Bitcoin, check out the new merch. It's extremely high quality. The tags say Simply Bitcoin. It says Bitcoin or slavery on the inside. The hats are generally what sells out the first. But get yourself a new hoodie. Get yourself a new shirt. If you guys want to support the channel, support the media company, support us at Simply Bitcoin, you guys could go check it out in the description, and we'll also put,
or it's on YouTube. If you're on YouTube, I think it's literally right under us now. I think.
Yeah, it's right under us. I'm gonna put it in the live chat on Rumble and on YouTube, so you guys could check it out. If you're on Twitter, if you're watching us on X, you can go to simplybitcoin.com, go to collections, and you guys could check it out. Anyways, guys, we still have a loaded show for you guys. Let's check out the news. We will be right back.
I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Casa. Bitcoin security matters, but managing private keys can sometimes be complicated, especially multi-sig. What if you can secure your Bitcoin without worrying about losing a seed phrase or giving up custody? With Casa, you can completely control your Bitcoin with multi-key security, so even if one key is lost or stolen, your funds stay safe. No single point of failure, no stress. That's what I absolutely love about these guys. They make taking Bitcoin into self-custody incredibly easy with their best in industry user experience through their app. I've been personally recommending Casa for years now to my friends and family because they will get all the benefits of multi-key self-custody security without the hassle of having to learn complicated UI. And if you're thinking of one day passing on your Bitcoin to the next generation, their inheritance plan has you covered. Also, if you're a business looking to add Bitcoin to your treasury, do it the secure way with Casa for Business. To get started, go to casa.io today and get 5% off Casa Standard or Casa Premium with promo code SIMPLY. Need liquidity without having to sell your Bitcoin? For more than 6 years now, Ledn has been the trusted choice for Bitcoin-backed lending with transparency, security, and trust at their core. I absolutely love these guys, and I personally have not only an account with them, but also a loan. And some of the key features that I love about Ledn is the fact that there are no monthly payments. You pay at the end of the term. You also have the ability to roll over the loan as well, and you can pay it back whenever you want. Essentially what they do is that they help their clients unlock the liquidity of their BTC, allowing you to hodl while still accessing the wealth of your Bitcoin. They've been battle tested with their focus on transparency, security, and trust, allowing them to build a proven track record of client success and security, helping tens of thousands of clients harness the value of their digital assets with confidence and peace of mind. Learn more about what your BTC can do for you. Check out ledden.io today.
All right, everybody, we are back. Guys, I want to tell you guys about this big news. We have the crypto summit happening at the White House on Friday, hosted by the president, Donald J. Trump. And let's check out this article by The Block. Bitcoin to be treated differently from altcoins in U.S. crypto reserve, says Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick. It goes on to say, more details about the potential U.S. crypto reserve are set to come out of the White House inaugural crypto summit on Friday, according to independent political news outlet The Pavlok Today. Quote, the president definitely thinks that there's a Bitcoin strategic reserve, Commerce Secretary Lutnick reportedly told the outlet. Quote, now there will be the question of how do we handle the other cryptocurrencies, and I think the model is going to be announced on Friday when we do that. Lutnick suggested to The Pavlok Today that Bitcoin would receive a unique status under Trump's plans. A Bitcoin strategic reserve is something the president is interested in. He spoke about it all during the campaign trail, and I think you're going to see it executed on Friday. So Bitcoin is one thing, and the other currencies, the other tokens, I think will be treated differently, positively, but differently. The White House Crypto Summit will be chaired by Trump's crypto czar, David Sachs, and Presidential Working Group on Crypto Executive Director, Bo Hines. Strategy co-founder Michael Saylor, Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong, Kraken CEO Arjun Sethi, and Chainlink co-founder Sergey Nasrov are expected to be among the crypto industry leaders in attendance. President Trump announced on Sunday that following his January executive order, he had directed a working group to move forward on a U.S. crypto strategic reserve, including ETH, XRP, Solana, and Cardano, with those assets initially rising 10, 15, 25, 30, and 70% from last week's lows, respectively. Bitcoin subsequently dropped over 10%, and Ether plunged more than 15% after Trump's announcement of new tariffs on imports from Canada, Mexico, and China fueled risk-off sentiment, easing the crypto reserve news gains on Monday. Despite the recent announcement, questions remain over how any reserve would be funded and how likely it is to be enacted, with Federal Reserve and Treasury Department options both likely to require new legislation to be passed by Congress. And that's something that I want to talk about before I move on to the next article. So, okay, the president can do a lot with executive order. The problem is that if Trump does a strategic reserve via executive order, it's all fine and dandy until the next administration. If it's done via the executive order, the next president, and if it's not J.D. Vance, it could either be AOC or Kamala, you don't know, right? I don't know, or Gavin Newsom, but I haven't seen a change in stance by the Democratic Party towards the industry yet. It's not monolithic. There are Democrats like Ro Khanna, Senator Gillibrand of New York that feel very positive towards the industry. It's not a monolithic stance, but let's just say the Elizabeth Warren camp, and Elizabeth Warren is at the seat for the Democratic Party on the Senate Banking Committee. She holds a lot of weight in what she says, right? And we know what she wants. She wants a central bank digital currency, right? So the risk of Trump doing this via executive order is that if the Republicans lose the presidency in 2028,
they could just go in there and sell that entire strategic reserve, right? That's what could happen. If you do it via legislation like the Bitcoin Act, what Senator Lummis has introduced in the Senate, then it could stand the test of time. It doesn't matter what president goes into office. You can't repeal it unless you pass future legislation. So now the question is, do the Republicans have the votes? They do not. They have a slim majority in the House, but they don't have a filibuster-proof vote in the Senate. They only hold 53 seats. To be filibuster-proof, you need 60 votes, right? So the question is, are there 7 Democratic senators that are willing to get behind the Bitcoin Act? I asked this question to Senator Lummis in Washington, D.C. I went over and I interviewed her at the Capitol. It was quite awesome. It was a great experience. You guys could go check out that interview. It's on the Simply Bitcoin channel and on the podcast. And she said she was very hopeful about it, but we don't know. That's the honest truth. Now, the good news is on the short term, Trump can do a lot via executive order, and I think he's planning to do a lot via executive order. So we'll see what happens. And a quick reminder as well, the 6102 order by FDR was an executive order at first. It only became legislation after the fact. So FDR essentially making it illegal for citizens to own gold, that was done via executive order at first. And then is when he did it via the legislative process. Anyways, this took a little bit longer than I thought. So we'll cover the U.S. Marshal thing tomorrow. Opti, what are your thoughts, man? What's going on here? What are your thoughts, dude?
Yeah, well, very surprising to say the least. When I saw this kind of pop up on Twitter yesterday, I think this is a great development. I remember when we had the initial announcement of I'm forgetting what the working group. Remember, it was basically just going to be industry leaders, and then they talked about more of like a working group summit. And I think this is part of the development that we've been hearing. And actually, the part about the working group summit, remember, the reason that they did that was because of, quote, tribalism in the crypto space. Obviously, it's the Bitcoiners being like, get that shitcoin stuff out of here. This has nothing to do with us. It's not the same thing. There needs to be a completely differentiation here. And if you combine them all together, that's not only going to be a bad look for you guys, and, you know, taxpayers are basically getting dumped on by VC funding. And now it seems like either on the one hand, they are either doing like a real-time crash course and learning about what all this stuff is. Obviously, can't really expect politicians to know all the intricacies about the Bitcoin and / crypto industry, but it does seem like maybe they are learning, or at the very least, they're listening to everyone yelling at them. So all of us tweeting about this, all of us making a fuss about it, I think it might actually be working. I think we're starting to see that, hey, they are listening to what the people want. And if people in the industry are kind of saying like, look, even like, remember Brian Armstrong saying like, maybe it should only be Bitcoin. If even the leaders or quote unquote thought leaders in the space, the people that are making the business, the people that are kind of the talking heads and the publicly facing figures are saying maybe it should be Bitcoin only, I think we are starting to see some headwinds here, and we're starting to see, tailwinds here, and we're starting to see the Bitcoin signal break through here, because as we've been saying, as I was trolling, it's like, okay, if 30% of the strategic Bitcoin reserve is going to be in Bitcoin, then that means that the other 70% is going to go to zero. So they're either listening to us or they are learning in real time. Now, I do find it interesting, though, that, you know, a very big name wasn't announced that was going to be a part of the people at the summit on Friday. And that is, of course, Brad Garlinghouse, which is, of course, the XRP guy. And that name wasn't a part of this. So hopefully they are learning that, hey, maybe we don't want to give special favors to this XRP CEO, and we are kind of moving away. So maybe they swapped out Saylor for Brad Garlinghouse here, and maybe we will see some good stuff come out of this on Friday. Obviously, you know, we probably shouldn't be holding our breath here, because will probably be disappointed, but it seems like it's moving in the right direction. So I am really excited, and I'm sure we'll cover this either on our Twitter by Friday, or if it, I don't know when the time is. I think it's later in the day. So we'll probably be covering the stuff that comes out of it on Monday next week. But it is very interesting to see that they do seem to be changing their tune. And as we've been saying for a long time, obviously there's Bitcoin and then there's everything else. So look, as much as we aren't for Bitcoin being treated differently or getting, favors from the government here, everyone knows that there's Bitcoin and then there's everything else, and they aren't on the same caliber or the same playing field. Like, there's Bitcoin and everything just follows Bitcoin. So it seems like, Howard Lutnick, the Bitcoiner that he is, he holds a lot of the Tether assets. We know he's trying to buy hundreds of millions of dollars of Bitcoin. It seems like the Bitcoin message, the Bitcoin maxi message, is finally getting through. So, hey,
we made enough noise. We made enough noise.
Continue to make the noise, because it does, at least from this news, this development, it does seem like it's working. So
absolutely. All right, guys. So I think we have enough time to cover this. So we're definitely, because I want to connect the dots between the two. I don't think this article is okay. So Biden definitely knew that Trump had a plan to, basically roll out a strategic Bitcoin reserve. Elizabeth Warren wants a central bank digital currency. There was a bill that was passed in the House last year, essentially, and it was essentially divided across party lines, where the vast majority of Republicans voted against the federal, that would ban the federal government from rolling out a central bank digital currency. And the vast majority of Democrats voted for the bill that would allow the government to pass a central bank digital currency, to roll out a central bank digital currency. So it's pretty divided. It's not monolithic, like I've said a million times, but that's where it stands right now. Now, the reason I'm bringing all this up is, check this out. And according to David Bailey, none of this is a coincidence, but this is a headline: U.S. Marshal Service can't say how much crypto it holds, complicating Bitcoin reserve plans. It goes on to say the U.S. Marshal Service is tasked with managing assets seized by law enforcement in the course of criminal investigations. It is also supposed to be handling cryptocurrencies, for example, the billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin seized by the Federal Bureau, the FBI, from darknet marketplace Silk Road. However, the USMS doesn't seem to know how much crypto it currently has. In fact, the agency is struggling to come up with a rough estimate of even its Bitcoin holdings, a source familiar with the matter told CoinDesk. That could be a problem in light of White House crypto czar David Sachs' announcement earlier this month that the U.S. government is actively studying the possibility of constituting a national crypto reserve, meaning that the government might stop liquidating seized cryptocurrencies. Quote, when you start talking about reserves, you need to be familiar with the unique properties of the asset, like forks, ASROPs. I mean, that applies to altcoins, not really Bitcoin. Anyways, you guys get the general gist of this. And with everything that happened with Doge and Elon and, all the things of the lawfare against the previous president, who's now president, Operation Choke Point 2.0, forgive me, I'm a little bit jaded. Opti could have told you I was like, no, man, they just don't know any better. That was Nico, January of 2024. By the end of 2024, I was like, Trump 2024, they're going after our keys. They're going after the mining industry. Like, holy cow. But I gave him the benefit of the doubt for over a year. And then it became very apparent that, the Elizabeth Warren camp was very hostile towards the industry. Just became super, super, super apparent. So I think the question I'm going to be dropping off to you guys, because we don't know for sure, is how do you lose track of hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin? It's like, oh, we lost it. Did you lose it or did you sell it? Did you lose it or was it sold? Right? That's the question that I have for you guys. And I'll let us know in the chat what you think. If you think that the U.S. government still has that Bitcoin, Drop a 1 in the chat. If you think they don't, drop a 2 in the chat. Do you think the U.S. government still has the gold at Fort Knox? Drop a 2 in the chat. If you think they do have that gold, you guys get the point. Opti, what are your thoughts on this, bro? Because there's so many coincidences, man. There's so many coincidences and all this. And I'm a little bit jaded because there was a point last year that I thought we were going to have to move to El Salvador, bro, because, you know, it was getting kind of spicy. They were attacking our industry. Self-custody was under attack. The mining industry was under attack. You know, people were getting debanked. Bitcoin exchanges were being debanked. It was quite a scary time in history. Now, it complete 180, right? But what are your thoughts, Opti, before we move on to the culture segment?
My thoughts are I'm not leaving. No, I mean, when we covered this story, like when it first came out, I think it's interesting to kind of bring this up today, considering what we're going to potentially hear on Friday is, you know, we haven't really heard much from this. And like you said, like, did they really fumble the bag here? You know, did they lose the keys? Did someone within the administration sell that Bitcoin? Did it get stolen? I think all of these questions are really big questions that need to be answered when you are talking about what is going to happen with this strategic Bitcoin reserve, considering that we're seeing that it's becoming a very top list of a priority for the Trump administration to do a strategic Bitcoin reserve. Remember, all the Bitcoiners basically only voted for Trump because he announced that he was going to do a strategic Bitcoin reserve. And now, as the saying's been saying, you know, promises made, promises kept. So it seems like he's either going to answer these questions over the weekend or, you know, maybe we won't get more clarity here. But, you know, as David Bailey's been saying, he's been saying for a while that he thinks, and I don't know if he has sources here or if this is just him speculating, but he thinks that the, you know, DOJ and the Marshal's office has essentially been liquidating those Bitcoin holdings, which could account for the fact that the Bitcoin price has been dumping. If they're dumping Bitcoin on the market, then, you know, there's a lot of Bitcoin being sold. So it is very interesting to bring up in the light of what we're going to hear on Friday. Do they even have all this Bitcoin? Or rather, what are the mechanics or the technicals for how they're going to do the strategic Bitcoin reserve? Like, we know a lot of rumors have been saying that they were essentially just going to take the Bitcoin they hold and essentially just put that into the strategic Bitcoin reserve. Well, it's going to be interesting if they don't have the Bitcoin. You know, they're going to have to buy the Bitcoin on the open market. Like, I don't know. It all sounds, I think it's all a win-win. I mean, minus, you know, the U.S. government profiting off seized Bitcoin. But hey, you know, that's kind of what they do here. But if they end up not having this Bitcoin and they buy Bitcoin on the market, open market, it looks like we are going to get number going up exponentially. Hardcore. So who knows like at this point, who knows what's going on with that Bitcoin? We haven't heard anything back about this for a couple of weeks now, or about a month. No, it's been like 2 to 3 weeks. But hey,
how do you lose tens of thousands of Bitcoin?
Well,
like, how do you lose that?
Is that a rhetorical question? Because we just know how inefficient and incompetent governments are. So are we surprised that they lost the keys?
Was it lost or was it sold? Like, I feel like it was sold, dude.
If you
did you wait, hold on. Did you see that? Did you see the Trump speech yesterday where there's someone who's been collecting Social Security and they're 360 years old? Did you see that shit? That was gnarly, dude. Holy cow.
But no, like I was gonna say, because when you look at that story and you really break it down, they were essentially sending, like, you know, seed phrases over just email. Like, are we surprised by the fact that the government is incompetent? Like, what's the government ever done? They're usually more incompetent than the private sector.
The vast majority of people in the chat are saying they lost it.
Yeah, it's lost.
Man.
It's lost.
Oh man. Anyways, guys, if you guys are enjoying the show so far, we're on the verge of breaking 300 likes on YouTube. Smash that like button. Shout out to the YouTube audience. Shout out to Rumble. Rumble is kicking ass today. 461 live viewers on Rumble alone. And of course, the X audience coming in strong. 2,648 live viewers. If you guys are enjoying the show, smash the like button. Consider following or subscribing to Simply Bitcoin. And we still have the culture segment. We're going to be talking about the price of eggs. That's a narrative that we keep
keep hearing the price of eggs, the price of eggs. The government isn't doing enough to bring down the price of eggs. Well, I mean, you don't have to rely on the government to bring down the price of eggs. You're just using the wrong currency. You should be using Bitcoin. So we're going to be talking about that during the culture segment. We'll be right back.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, HIVE Digital Technologies. As the first ever public miner, HIVE's positioned to quadruple their global footprint in 2025. And as the first with an AI strategy, HIVE continues to make moves in sustainable, high-performance computing. They consistently top the industry in Bitcoin mined per exahash, and now they're headquartered in the USA. They're lean and mean, they're green and clean, and they're changing the game. You can catch the latest buzz by following them at HIVE Digital Tech or check out their website at hivedigitaltech.com. I want to give a very special shout out to our sponsor, Compass Mining. They make Bitcoin mining accessible to everyone, from beginners to experienced investors. Their turnkey miners gets you online and hashing within 48 hours, making it easier than ever to start your mining journey. Plus, with their active marketplace, you can resell your miner at any time, adding flexibility and value to your investment. Visit their website to access a wealth of resources, learning everything you need to know about Bitcoin mining. Take your first step into the world of Bitcoin mining with confidence. Discover more at compassmining.io. Again, compassmining.io, and see how Compass Mining can power your success.
Okay. All right, boys and girls. Mainly boys, but some girls. Here's the culture. As you know, the culture is not just bringing on Bitcoiners to expose you to what we call the Bitcoin culture, but also doing some social commentary on the fiat culture at large. And as a Bitcoiner, as an amateur Austrian economist over here, someone that's understood Bitcoin, you just see so many flaws in the corporate press's coverage of economics, and it's very easy. One, they try to gaslight you because they know that you probably don't understand economics. And two, they, for the most part, are Keynesians. Now, I'm not going, full left or right here. I'm not sticking up for any camp here. I am just kind of exposing the ridiculousness of the economics here. And of course, that your life just gets cheaper on Bitcoin. So I'm going to cycle through a couple of headlines here. The dates don't really matter. These have been in the last couple of days, the last couple of weeks. It's all about the egg prices. We've all probably heard all of the noise about egg prices. So here I'm just going through some of the big corporate presses and some headlines. And the first one we have from CBS News, and it goes, Trump calls egg prices a quote disaster. Is a federal rule helping to keep egg prices high? Or the next one, this one's from The Guardian, $5 a dozen. Major egg companies may be using avian flu to hike U.S. prices, new report finds. Guys, it's a report. The report is saying that the producers of eggs are hiking the prices. Or this next one, this one's coming from Fox News. Trump admin scrutinizes kill all the chicken policy as bird flu ravages egg prices. Or the next one, this one's from Politico. This dropped yesterday. Trump says little on egg prices. The president offers no solution for rising prices. And this next one, Trump promised to lower egg costs. Everything just got more expensive. So what is going on with the eggs, guys? Oh my goodness, the eggs are going exponential. And like I said, I'm using some charts here. If you guys know Fred.St. Fed.org, they give you some of the best charts here. And they actually have, a chart on the average prices of eggs. And as you can see, it's been going up since forever. This is 1981, just increasing in price. Maybe it's following something more than just very selfish egg producers. But even if you zoom in here in the last 5 years, since 2020, it's still going up. It's almost parabolic. And in the last year, the price in eggs is increasing. So what is going on? Well, as a Bitcoiner, I'd probably just go and point to this chart, the M2 money supply. It seems to be going up and to the right. The expansion of money is probably why inflation is happening. But hey, what do I know? I'm just an amateur Austrian economist here. here. And even the last 5 years, it's continued to go up since 2020. And even in the last year, it's still going up. So it's almost like the egg prices are following the M2 money supply. What a coincidence here. It's not greedy producers here. It's not the greedy farmers hiking rates on egg prices. It might just be that they have increased the money supply, hence why inflation's going up. But that's besides the point. That's totally besides the point. That's not why we're here. We're here to show you one of my favorite charts. And you do have to do a little bit of tinkering on the Fred St. Louis site, but you can do average egg prices in Bitcoin terms. And as you can see, and this only goes to 2015, the price of eggs in Bitcoin is just dropping. It's never been cheaper in the last, 10 years, 11 years than today to buy eggs in Bitcoin. But, you probably didn't buy Bitcoin in 2015. You're like, cool, bro, cool story. Tell me about today. Well, if you bought Bitcoin in 2020, your egg prices have dropped about three times. It was, roughly around 16,000. Now it's around 4,000. So, it's dropped about 4 times. Anyways, in the last year, that's probably the only number you really care about. It's still going down. The price of eggs in Bitcoin is still cheaper, even by the Fed's numbers themselves. And, Bitcoin has kind of just gone sideways. Like, yes, it's gone up, but it's really, gone sideways. So even in the face of looking at this chart of average prices of eggs going up, the average price of eggs in Bitcoin terms is going down. And this is what we try to tell you guys every single day. We probably bring this chart up or this website up, pricedinbitcoin21.com, all the time on the show. And it doesn't really matter what metric you look at. Your life gets cheaper on Bitcoin. And this is what we try to tell everyone. It's not about getting rich quickly in Bitcoin. It's about saving your purchasing power in Bitcoin over an extended time. And over that extended time, at least, we used to like to say 4 years. If you save in Bitcoin around 4 years, your life's going to get cheaper. Now, maybe we have to kind of extend that a little bit, at least 2 cycles. So I know it's not sexy to say, hey, saving Bitcoin in 8 years, your life's going to get better. Well, we're talking about building long-term generational wealth here. So it doesn't happen overnight.
I would say it still takes 4 years and your life will get better, but it takes 8 years to be relatively wealthy compared to where you started. So, and I would say wealthy compared to where you started takes about 8 years. Yeah, for sure. But your life will get better within 4 years if you start saving in Bitcoin today.
It's about getting rich over time with eggs. Lol, you guys are funny. Yeah, guys. So look. You've seen the narratives on all of the corporate press sites. This is one of those meme topics that you're hearing both sides of the aisle talk about, the price of eggs. We're so focused on the price of eggs. They never really get to the actual problem here is that they're expanding the money supply. Guys, inflation is very simple to understand. It's not about, consumer prices going up. That's how they sell it to you. It's about the expansion of the money supply. That is why things get more expensive. This is why in the fiat world, your life is more expensive is because they constantly create more dollars. So more dollars are buying for similar products, which means you have to raise the price of things to either keep up with the, not only the consumption level, but also the production level. And none of these corporations, media corporations, or even the politicians are talking about what is going on, what is the real problem here, or rather, what is the solution? They're just talking about all these different, I would say, conspiracy theories on the reasons why egg prices are so high, when in reality, they're just creating more dollars, guys. So this is why you save in Bitcoin. You can go buy yourself some eggs and you can eat good. And you don't have to worry about the price of eggs, man. Just start saving in Bitcoin and your life gets cheaper. Even by the Fed's data themselves, your life is cheaper. And actually, I was looking at this chart. I haven't looked at this in a while. I've done this in the past. And I looked at it and I was kind of surprised that even the fact that Bitcoin is kind of going sideways, that egg prices have continued to decline. So Bitcoin seems to be working very well as a store of value, a la what BlackRock has been saying. So, stack some Bitcoin, eat some eggs. Your life is good, man.
Absolutely. Amen to that, brother. And what I will say is this is why the IMF fought so hard to take Bitcoin off legal tender. Like, this is what it's all about, guys. Listen, when you put Bitcoin side to side with fiat, it's better money. And that's a clear and present danger to the entire system, the control system, because that's really what it is, like, if we're being blunt. And the IMF can't have that. And they can't have that under no circumstances. And that's why they did what they did, right? And, you know, look at the data yourself, right? Like, when you start saving and earning in Bitcoin, everything gets cheaper over time, right? And that completely puts the world upside down for a lot of financial institutions that make a living off, you know, trying to, you know, make a return on your investment. It puts governments in a pickle, because how do they explain inflation to their population, especially if there's an alternative that doesn't have inflation? Like, this is a pivotal moment in human history. You want to know why the IMF did what they did? This is why. Like, Opti's trying to meme it into existence with the whole egg thing, because that's like the whole talking point you hear lately in the cycle from the Democrats. Are like, Trump promised to lower the egg prices when he would get into office, and he hasn't lowered the egg prices. And then, of course, Trump, when Biden was in office, was like, the egg prices went up. Like, and this is the mind fuck, excuse my language. Like, politicians don't have the ability to lower the price of eggs. If you want to lower the price of eggs, just use better money. Start using Bitcoin as your unit of account. The price of eggs will trend to zero in Bitcoin terms. Like, literally, everything trends to zero in Bitcoin terms. So Jose in the chat says the IMF wants all the eggs for themselves. It's absolutely hilarious. Anyways, guys, I do want to give a shout out to our sponsor, BitBlockBoom. Guys, it's one of the best Bitcoin conferences of the year. It's coming up in Dallas, Texas, very, very soon. April 3rd through the 6th of 2025. Tickets increase in 3 days. If you use promo code BBB21, you get $100 off your tickets. We want to see you guys in Dallas, Texas, April 3rd through the 6th of 2025. It's one of the best Bitcoin conferences of the year. The entire Simply Bitcoin crew will be there, and we hope to see you guys there as well. Again, promo code BBB21 to get $100 off of your tickets. Anyways, guys, we love you all. That was Simply Bitcoin Live for March 5th, 2025. If you guys enjoyed the show, you know what to do. Smash the like button. Consider subscribing to Simply Bitcoin. Share the episode. Get the message out there. It's not red versus blue. It's not conservative versus liberal. It's green versus orange. It's Bitcoin versus slavery. Love you all. We'll see you guys on the next one.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.